Derek asked if I'd be interested in talking to you guys. Basically, I have a YouTube channel and a website at 30-30.club. And it's mostly just recording sort of commentary free, like gameplay of baseball video games from not just Japanese games, but that's tended to be kind of what I specialized in because I have a little bit of a language skill there. And yeah, and so when it was like, what are you going to talk about? I decided to do a little intro to what that region of games has been like because I was surprised just as I dug further into learning more about different baseball video games out there, how much there was that did not come out over here. You think it's an American sport, and so many games get imported, get translated, but a huge chunk of those never did. So yeah, got the presentation named after kind of three unique things about three terms from Japanese baseball that we'll get into as we get further on the slides. But um, yeah, so yeah, my name's Nate Edwards. There's the links to my website and YouTube. There's also like an encyclopedia part of the website that I haven't been trumpeting to the heavens too much yet because it's still being worked on, but where I do stuff like scan game manuals and boxes and stuff and write about these games and things like that. But in the past, I wrote an iPhone, also on Steam, text-based baseball game called The Fielder's Choice, where you are a pitcher and you kind of make your choices about how to run your career. Um, I've written an article for Deadspin, actually about international soccer in that case, and I used to write for the Japanese culture and language learning site Tofugu, um, where I used to write about baseball and other stuff there, TV shows, and sometimes things like that. Um, I actually got that job after starting with this kind of stuff, where at the time, I was kind of frustrated with MLB The Show being kind of the only baseball game in town, and had kind of decided to look around and see what else there might be out there, and then figured out that there was this series called Professional Baseball Spirits that came out only in Japan. This was on the PS3 at the time. So I imported that and then played just some exhibition mode games, not being able to read anything, and enjoyed it a lot. And then that's kind of how I got started on this journey of learning the language. And just it ended up being something I really enjoyed was learning how to read Japanese and that sort of unlocking more parts of the game for me that now I can go and do the career mode or the season mode or things like that as I learn more. And so, I was in college at the time. I would stay up late and watch some Japanese baseball, some NPB games. The Occult Swallows are my team. I have a mouse pad of their uniform here. Um, but yeah, I so that's and that sort of just branched out and then eventually turned into me working for that site and then starting my own site about baseball video games. So yeah, just to kind of start at the start, and this is kind of focusing on console games for this. There is kind of even a little more of a prehistory than this in terms of arcade and computer games. But yeah, it's similar to how the sport was surprisingly goes far, just about as old in Japan as it is in the United States, that it made the transition very soon after it was invented over here. Sort of the same way that there were separate American made and Japanese made video games going back almost to the start. This Epic Cassette Vision game, I put 1981 because that's the recording this version's from, but that's actually from 1978 was the first version of the same game. It was not a console cartridge, but it was just a standalone, like a Pong machine kind of thing. That looks identical to that footage there. So yeah, 1978 for that, and for the Atari 2600 first baseball game, that home run there. And Champion Baseball by Sega, which did come out in the US as an arcade game, but was in terms of a console release was Japan only. And then we have I included it sort of to show the way that the art styles begin to branch apart very soon, like the sort of cartoony look of this game, Yakyukyo, Baseball Fanatic, on the bottom left here. That sort of cartoony graphic style you'll see a lot in these games. And it's still the most popular series, even on PlayStation 5 today, is still kind of a cartoon graphic style, not a realistic looking baseball game. But and then yeah, these on the right side here that mostly did come out in Japan later, didn't have a huge impact over there because it was years later before Atari kind of made a bigger effort to release stuff over in that region. Um yeah, those different Atari and I forget who made Star League Baseball, honestly, but games over there on the right. Um and then once so there was the sort of video game market crash in 1983, I think. That eh, and coming out of that the Nintendo ended up being kind of the big company that brought console games back to the States. And so because of that, there was this period of time where it was sort of the same baseball games coming out in both markets under different names. And so we got three examples of that here. So these are all after what we know as RBI Baseball, which is called over there Pro Yaku Family Stadium, came out. There's this big boom of all these big selling baseball games on the NES or family computer. And so there's just a million different, call them copycats or call them different variations on a formula, a ton of different games um, that are all coming out. And a pretty decent percentage of those also came to the United States. It was a period when it was not that difficult to localize, to translate those games. These are mostly games that don't have any license. Um, I think none of the games pictured here have real player names. Most of them do have city names, but not team names. So, it's not a big change to go from players that are supposed to kind of secretly be Japanese league players to players that are supposed to kind of secretly be MLB players. Um, and, there's not a lot of text in the games and things like that. So there's not a lot to translate and localize. And so it's kind of an easy time to bring things over between the two regions. The um, yeah, those three examples here. Gekito Stadium becoming Bad News Baseball, Chojin Ultra Baseball, Baseball Simulator 1000, then Baseball Star becoming Baseball Stars over here. Three kind of big late 80s titles there. So kind of what ends up making like identifying sort of the culture of a Japanese baseball video game. And these are all things that tend to come from things that were happening in the sport over there at the time. We might think it's kind of just expected that we would have some kind of music playing during games, but in terms of like American made games, there's not this like constantly looping music track going the whole time during gameplay. The same way you do have on the Japanese games. You've got maybe occasional organ music or things like that. They're Ken Griffey for the SNES is one counterexample, technically British made, but um, that does have that music track. But a lot of them try and go for that sort of realistic soundscape of like an audience hum over time. But that's not really what baseball sounds like in Japan. They have Owendan fan groups that are constantly playing different songs throughout the time. It'll be sometimes theme songs for a player. Sometimes it's what they call chance themes, which is a specific song you play when there's a runner on second or third, a runner in scoring position. So here's going to play this video here with one specific example. If you've played RBI Baseball, you'll be familiar with. So we have here just the American version of RBI with this little jaunty theme that plays the whole time. And this is
Can't
a
hear the audio.
oh, I gotta share audio. Okay. I shared wrong. Just a second. Click share sounds, click optimize for video sharing. There we go. All right. And let's get this back here. So this is a very lightly changed version of a college theme song for KO University. That's also used in a lot of high school baseball. It's the cheering section for KO University.
I think you need to maximize that screen, but we can hear the audio now.
Need to maximize the screen. What am I? So I'm sharing the wrong window here. Yeah, okay. Screen two, share sound, everything. Okay. But we got through the slide here, I think. But Yeah. So, and even the specific theme was copied by a lot of other games at the time. But there's, any single after the point at which it became technologically possible, any Japanese baseball game has this kind of thought of a song that's playing the whole time during gameplay, and usually switching to a different song, a chance theme, when there's a runner in scoring position. Which just comes from how the sport really is there. Get college, high school, pros, they all have this concept of, yeah, the fan section is playing a song the whole time during the game. Um, another fun thing, especially in the late 80s games, is fight scenes. We kind of associate with hockey games. With the exception of MLB Slugfest, I'm trying to think of any other American-made baseball game that has a fight scene in it. But this was common, and we've got a bunch of examples queued up here. Because of a very famous event that happened in 1987. So here's Warren Cromartie. We got beaned by Masami Miyashita, and was offended by that Miyashita didn't tip his cap like you're supposed to usually do in Japan after a hit by pitch. No apology. It was part of the Dragons' kind of culture that year. Their manager wanted them to do what he called fighting baseball, to kind of be unapologetically rough and tumble, and having kind of adverse effects here with a very infamous punch. Now, this happened 2 weeks before the game that we call Bases Loaded came out in Japan, Moero Proyaku, and yet they somehow managed to program it into the game in that short time period. And then every game that came out after that in Japan had to have their own version. Their own version of a fight scene coming after a hit by pitch. And so you can see it says on the screen there, dead ball. That's what they call it in Japan, a hit by pitch. Here, this game has the feature there's a randomized winner of the fight, and so the loser gets taken out on a stretcher. Here's the commentators very nonchalantly saying, here comes the reliever, and we can look forward to some good pitching from this reliever. Here's showing the fight having the opposite result here. Stealing a lot of these clips from the Japanese YouTube channel Atari Hazare. Thanks to them for that. I really like this one because it has an actual fighting minigame that appears, where both players can control the result of the fight, while the teammates are doing some moves back there in the background. And it just, as the years went on, it kept kind of one-upping, like, okay, we got to get bigger sprites, more detailed graphics for it. I don't think it's in this clip, but go ahead.
I was going to say kind of a baseball meets Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think this clip has it, but yeah, that last series would also include a drunk guy running onto the field after the fights eventually and things like that. And then I think probably the most extreme example here of putting all the art budget into a fight. And then this one's unusual for being, this is the last one that really included it, and it's the only one of these in the clip that actually includes real player names, so you can actually have Ichiro versus Hideo Nomo if you want in that game. This trend went away as they had to, licenses became a necessary part of baseball video games, and it just became sort of a, we don't know for sure, but presumably, something that the league or the Players Association over there didn't want to keep including. And it just became less a part of the culture of Japanese baseball. It became less of more like what we're used to now, with the players from different teams being friends. And, back at the time, it was a very tense kind of era of we have to really hate our opponent and things like that. Lucky 7 is another thing that you'll have seen on baseball video games from this time period. These are all screenshots from American release games. that they don't have the seventh inning stretch over there. They have the concept of the lucky seven in Japan and Korea, which is this idea that it's like the turning point of the game. And so a lot of games even have like a concept where there'll be more offense in the seventh inning, like programmatically in the code and things like that, to represent this idea. Um, of yeah, the seventh inning being somewhere where either the starter finally gives up a run, or a middle reliever comes in and gives up the lead, of it being kind of the action inning of a game. um we unique modes are another thing that tends to be like characteristic of games from that region. We have here a bunch of crazy varied examples from different time periods. So this upper left screenshot is is the doctor's lab from the story mode, the success mode of Powerful Pro Baseball, for the N64. So this is coming from a story mode where you're controlling a character, going through living through a story and kind of making daily decisions about like where to go, who to hang out with. Maybe they can get married, they can buy things for their apartment and stuff like that. We have these kind of career modes in some other sports games over here, but not quite so much in baseball games. And very wacky storylines with kind of an anime style stuff. And this is something that's been in every game in that series, is the idea of this doctor who will has a very risky chance, will do some kind of surgery where you either have a chance to become much better or much worse if you run into this doctor and decide to let him do his experiments. Um, the We've got a board game mode from the same series over on the right, um, where it's you're going through different tiles and meeting different players and stuff like that. It's sort of supposed to be a quick paced version of the other story mode where you're kind of developing your own character and his abilities, um, but just more quickly by going through a board game. Speaking of board game, we have the Yakyu Jinsei Ichokusen on the sort of bottom left here, the middle left, which is it's a game of life clone, that's all about becoming a baseball player, and it's from birth, where you're just rolling the dice and seeing what events you get and what kind of baseball player you become, but very much inspired by the game of life board game. We have on the right a sort of samurai country conquest baseball mode from one of the first games that I imported, which is Powerful Pro Baseball 2011, where yeah, based on, it's got real samurai era historical figures who you're playing baseball games against instead of doing wars, and you're kind of recruiting them to your team and trying to take over all of Japan. And then the final boss is Commodore Perry, the U.S. Navy that opened Japan to trade right after the samurai era. You have to beat their American team and their metal bats for the final boss battle. And then we have, yeah, sort of similar, like a pirate themed mode. It's just crazy for that to be a screenshot of a baseball game, but it is on the bottom, from Super Famista 3, I think, on the Super Famicom, where yeah, you pick a pro team, and they are sort of a pirate clan, and you're competing over resources while you're playing baseball games against other teams and things like that. It's something that MLB The Show started taking on recently. They start to have sort of wacky modes where you're doing a board game like a version of Risk, where you're playing baseball games against other teams and things like that. So we're starting decades later to kind of have that over here too. Um, so yeah, kind of going back into our chronology here. So we have again kind of illustrating the sort of graphical style split. So these are really the same game. It's an adaptation of the same game up top, with Pro Family Stadium and then RBI Baseball as it came out over here. Namco owned a controlling stake in Atari slash Tengen at the time, and so they brought their baseball game over under them. And then once Namco wasn't really running the show over there anymore, any of those sequels were, still based on the same code, but were, making their own graphics and sound to take over in RBI Baseball 2. You can see 2 years later. And but the series kind of continued on in Japan, and has had, a couple dozen releases going even into, I think 2020 was the last release in the series. And this was one of the first things that when I was kind of exploring Japanese games that I was kind of shocked by, because I was a huge fan of RBI Baseball, and it was just crazy to see, for me personally, the later RBI baseball games get a little dull. The gameplay is not quite as nice, and going for realism, but in a way that didn't quite work for me. And so I kind of was kind of excited to find these Japan only games that continued the series and kind of moved it in sort of a wacky, colorful direction, getting more and more crazy and adding Namco characters like Pac-Man there in the bottom left, um, more and more over time. And so, um, but yeah, like I said, kind of illustrating the stylistic difference where there were games in Japan that kind of aimed for realism, trying to be a uh, a look as much like the real game as possible and play as much like the real game as possible. They just didn't tend to be the ones that were successful. The kind of cartoony, crazy ones tended to be the better sellers over there over time, and so that's just kind of continued to be the culture. Um, so once we moved into kind of the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 era, we got back in this period where, like I said, licenses were suddenly very important. And so there weren't really games that were coming out in both regions so much anymore. Um, these American-made games on the right did come out in Japan, but not to any huge sales or anything. And besides the bottom one, they weren't actually translated. They were just released with English menus and English player names and everything. Um, but and the games on the left weren't released in the United States at all. But the you can see again kind of a different kind of cartoony look with Play Stadium. World Stadium 4 is still part of that same family stadium series, and Baseball Live 2005. So that is a realistic looking game by Namco there. That's got you actually looking out of the catcher's mask as you play there. Kind of crazy, um, yeah, it became kind of two separate worlds and just stayed that way after that. Um, with continuing to be annual releases in both regions, but not really in conversation with each other so much. As we moved on to kind of PlayStation 3 and onwards, we got to the point where game development became more expensive, licenses became more expensive, and we were down to really only one company that was making console, these big control it yourself baseball games at the time, which over time became San Diego studio for Sony in the West, and with MLB The Show series, and Konami here with two separate parallel series, a realistic and a cartoony looking one, with this Pro Baseball Spirits and Powerful Pro Baseball series over here that had just continued, and that's kind of still the situation today, where it's Konami in Japan and Sony in the United States, and not a lot else going on. We did have the 2K series for some of this period over on the right in the US, but disappearing. The last game of those was 2013, so it's been a long time with really nothing in competition with the show for that kind of
Nate,
simulation baseball game. Yeah.
with Japan being so big in baseball and making the games and that, and Nintendo there as a console, they really didn't ever come together a whole lot, did they?
Yeah, weirdly, Nintendo a little, they've never really, besides Wii Sports, made a lot of their own sports games. They've kind of contracted out to other companies. But after the first NES baseball by Nintendo, there's not, and then they published the Ken Griffey games. And then after that, we're talking about Mario Superstar Baseball for GameCube, and then the very similarly named game, which I'm forgetting, another Mario Baseball for Wii, and Wii Sports Baseball, and then not a lot else. Yeah, like it's been there've been rumors popping up every now and then that Namco would make another Mario baseball game, but unclear if those were just made up or ended up getting axed at some point. There was an unreleased GameCube Nintendo published game called Pennant Chase Baseball that I've kind of tried to put a bunch of time into and interviewed some people about and things like that to try and figure out what happens. But got kind of a chilly reception at E3 in 2005 and then got canceled and has never seen the light of day. But so yeah, it's been kind of odd yeah, right, the lack of baseball on Nintendo while they continue to make a tennis and a golf game every other year. But
It was Mario Super Sluggers. Was that the other one?
that's it. Yeah. There you go. But yeah, and there's still a big scene of those today. Like it's pretty popular on YouTube. The people playing the GameCube Mario Baseball. There've been like weirdly kind of deep mechanics around like which players are teammates with each other and things like that. And so it's been something that people are still kind of into, but hadn't come back in a while. Um, so just to, I've looked into, I don't really have the language skills to dig too far into this stuff, but I've tried to look into, okay, so there's all this stuff I didn't know about for so long that came out in Japan. Is there stuff in other baseball countries? And, Korea and Taiwan and Latin America are also, baseball crazy regions and also regions that make video games. So yeah, what have they done in this space? And they totally exist. There are games from those regions. They're a little tougher, a little less accessible because they tends to be, in the case of Korea and Taiwan, either mobile games or online computer games. And so it's the kind of thing that if it was an online only game for mobile or PC, then, the servers shut off and there's no way to play it anymore in the future. Or, a lot of them require like a Korean cell phone number or credit card to to log in. And so it's, something I've tried to beat my head against, and I'm sure I will again in the future. But here are some kind of example screenshots here of a couple. Of a Korean game on the top, a Taiwanese game in the middle, and then in the case of Latin America, there are like mods for games like MLB The Show and MLB 2K that have things like the Dominican League, the Venezuelan League, the Serie Caribe, things like that. Those exist like very commonly. Not so much like official published games for those regions, not so much. But that's a pretty big modding scene in Latin America for making those leagues a reality. Um, so yeah, hopefully something I'll have to learn how to read a little bit of Korean enough to get by at some point and try to try to tackle those again someday and record some of those. But and Com to Us is a Korean company that makes a lot of the mobile games that you see in the US right now too. MLB Nine Innings is one of theirs. So South Korea is a big producer of baseball video games. It's just a little hard to play them outside the region. But and Out of the Park Baseball, actually, yeah, the main baseball sim management game right now is published by Com2Us, since that's part of why it has the both MLB and KBO license to use in game. Um, but yeah, so kind of the news peg of all this, the thing that's kind of made this been recently interesting was in October last year there was a game that came out, Professional Baseball Spirits 2024, made by Konami. But it was just there's been a lot of frustration around MLB The Show not really doing much to improve their graphics over the past decade or so. And this was a leap where a game was really trying to go only PS5 and PC, trying to go for, a really big graphical upgrade. And it was only released in Japan, and even if you want to get it on PC, you got to really jump through a lot of hoops to play it because it's not released in this region at all. But it was such a big graphical upgrade that it became kind of a phenomenon on all these YouTubes of people who usually, have all these subscribers playing MLB The Show all the time. They all had to record a video of them with the YouTube thumbnail face holding the game and, saying some version of, wow, best looking game ever. And getting a ton of views. My channel benefited from a lot too, from this being just everyone trying to check out this crazy looking Japan only game. And benefiting from all the Japanese players that have come to MLB recently, Shohei Ohtani, Yamamoto, Sasaki, people like that. Um, also spurring some interest there. But yeah, and it's not uncommon if you look at any YouTube video that's about MLB The Show, you scroll down the comments a little bit, you'll see someone who will be grumpy and asking about when are they going to improve the graphics like Professional Baseball Spirits, or when's Konami going to release Baseball Spirits over here, or something like that. Um, but yeah, so that's been kind of the big development here. It's kind of threatening to maybe it's like that's the big rumor is, are they going to release an MLB game that looks like this? Are they going to try and bridge the gap and jump over to this market? And if you're watching opening day, or if you've watch MLB TV, you'll see ads for a game called MLB Pro Spirit. which is not exactly that. It is made by Konami as part of the same series, but it's a mobile only game. You know, doesn't have the crazy graphics that everyone's all excited about, but it is kind of like, okay, so they have the license. Are they gonna, are they gonna do it sometime in the next year or two here? So we'll have to see. But yeah, so I wanted to kind of just play a little bit of the game live here. Hopefully, if I can handle the technical stuff here. If I can't, I'll just play a little recording of it. But the yeah, kind of show what it looks like, since that's the kind of the story of the day in like contemporary, these kind of action baseball video games here. So let's do that. Okay. Sure. Optimize for video sharing. Okay. We should have some kind of jazzy music in here right now, I think. How loud or quiet is that?
Yeah, that sounds fine.
Okay. So I'll just play about an inning here, show it off. So we've got the 2023 World Baseball Classic Japan roster in the game. Sadly, minus Lars Nootbaar for licensing reasons. But I like the stadium. It has kind of a bad reputation for being hot, and but I like it was an old stadium in Japan that they built a dome just over top of, so it's kind of an open air dome where the SABR Lions play, Balloon Dome. We'll play Team Japan versus the Central League All-Stars here. So you saw Masataka Yoshida there a second ago. And here's big man Otani. So a nice thing about these games is they have the real ads from the stadium, which is kind of fun. You'll recognize some brands. For a two-seamer. And hopefully the splitter will finish him off. Tricky play. Oh, just barely. Okamoto hit a couple of home runs off of Trevor Bauer recently. Japan. In trouble. I like that you can see the grip pretty well on the slow motion replays for the pitchers.
Interesting that some of players info replay certain words are in English, right?
Yeah, right. So there's an English language setting in the game, but that's the extent to which it controls is that of Bean Murakami, who might be coming to MLB next year. But yeah, but yeah, right. That's all it controls. There's a couple of tiny little UI elements. You wonder if they planned for something more at some point, and it just didn't end up happening. There's Domingo Santana, you might remember from MLB.
Yes.
Can we throw him out? Nope. We're getting a little bit of a bad frame rate compared to real live action, but it's close enough to show kind of what it looks like. Hopefully we can get out of the inning and I can just quickly show the angle while batting, and then we can move on.
そうですね。打ちました、流しました。これはどうか。源田、一塁送球、アウト。際どいタイミングでしたが、スリーアウトチェンジです。さあ、これが先ほどの。しかしこの回オールセントラル、見事な攻撃でした。1対0。日本のスターティングラインナップです。1番セカンド山田、2番ライト近藤、3番指名打者には大谷。対するオールセントラル。バッターは1番セカンドで先発出場の山田です。
Yeah, you can see the playground out in left field just barely. If I hit a deep fly ball, you'll see it better. But there we go. I did a video on my channel where I was recently where I was using free cam to kind of explore outside the stadium, and it's kind of crazy how much detail they put outside there, like
Yeah, that is
fully
neat.
modeled slide and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that about does it. Right, Fanatics ad out in left field. SABR. And we'll let Otani hit real quick and we'll stop.
まあこの場面で勝負強い選手に回ってますからね。チームとしてはここで得点しておきたいですよね。
はい、その期待のかかる大谷がバッターボックスです。初球は何で来るか。赤星さん、この緊迫した場面でボールがしっかり見えていますね。
Oof, mistake pitch, missed it.
よく見極めましたね。
そうですね。打ち上げた。
Almost.
高い打球。ここはフライになっています。
That's okay.
取ってアウト。ツーアウトランナー三塁と変わります。
There's Yoshida. Tiny guy. All right. So yeah, just showing what that looks like, and yeah, that's been the big story for going forward to next couple of years here is will they make some version of that for MLB or not in the future? We'll have to see. But
I think you got to share your video again.
yeah, I'm slowly getting it, slowly getting it back up, getting my windows back. Not a lot more in the presentation anyway, but click through. But yeah, here's just a couple random snippets of screenshots of various stuff, and to kind of show, you know, there's a baseball fighter, which is tragically not one of the games that has fighting in it. For Super Famicom there, you know, just some random stuff I've scanned, all kind of collected here. But yeah, you know, it's see, I would totally, you know, it's not always the easiest thing in the world to play these games, but you know, emulation is great, and these games are pretty available for doing that kind of stuff. You know, a lot of the, you know, the new PS5 game, if you get a hard copy, which is not too hard to find on just eBay nowadays, you know, that'll run in an American PlayStation 5. Like I said, the PC version's harder. If you're curious, you can reach out and I can let you know how to grab a hold of it. But you know, but I would totally encourage anybody who's, you know, interested in baseball video games to you know, branch out and check out some of these. You know, it's just interesting to see different ideas of different ways to do it, and different a lot of kind of crazy ideas with cool story modes and interesting different gameplay mechanics and things like that. You know, I didn't cover here any computer games really. There are the same way that we have like baseball sims, baseball management games like Out of the Park or Baseball Mogul. They have those series over there too. They have Best Play Pro Yaku is one of those that's been going on for a long time. You know, they obviously a little more of a language barrier there, but those are also interesting to look at. You know, and that's but I think I'm kind of running aground here. But Any
Your camera is off. We see the screen share, but not your.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
we're at the Q&A session. Let's see where my video disappeared. But
There we go. All right.
so yeah, any
I mean that was
questions?
one of the first things when I stumbled upon your website and your channel. There was just the number of games that I had never heard of, and you could you could see that you went down the rabbit hole there, and
Yeah.
I'm sure there's like you said, there's some technical hurdles to jump through to emulation or to import those games, or I guess some of them you can purchase, play online and so forth. But
yeah, absolutely. We randomly just got a new English translation of an old Japanese game this week with whatever the crazy long title of it is. River City Baseball is the short name they'll give of it. If you ever played River City Ransom back for NES, they had all kinds of different sports games, some of which we got. Nintendo World Cup was one of those. But there was a baseball game over there that has a story mode and things like that that never came to the US, but it got an English translation this week and came out on Steam. But so it's I keep getting that's part of what my site keeps track of is reporting on that stuff. But yeah.
I guess we can open it up to questions. Phil or Andy, do you have anything you want to chime in about?
Sure, I'll ask one. That's really cool to know about the River City. I like all the River City and the Kunio-kun sports games. I didn't know there was a baseball one, so I can go ahead and kiss my allowance goodbye for this week because I know what I'm getting. I guess my question from seeing this, I know back on the Famicom there was, and I'll probably get some of the characters wrong, but I know there was a baseball game where I'm pretty sure you could play as like Kamen Rider and Ultraman, but I don't know much about it other than the screenshots. And so I was wondering if you knew much about that franchise, or if you could say if it ever made the jump from like 8-bit to 16-bit or anything after that, or if it was pretty much just a one-off on the Famicom.
Yeah, I think this Battle Baseball that has the those characters has Godzilla and Gundam and Kamen Rider characters kind of all jumbled together playing against each other. Yeah, that's it's a cool crazy thing just to see all those sprites and stuff like that. I don't think there's any I think there was a soccer one that came out later, but I think that's a one-off for baseball for that. I randomly found this week that RBI Baseball has a Kamen Rider crossover episode, which is crazy to see. Let me see if I can grab a picture and share it real quick. But or a video also. I how much time is it going to take me to find that? But yeah, I was gonna write about it for next week's post. But yeah, had never run into that until this week. And there's a toy you can buy. This is how I found it, was it came up with searching for Famista Family Stadium on Japanese auction site and then running into this toy over and over. There was a Kamen Rider toy and like, what's this about? Why would that exist? And then there was a whole TV episode for it. But my dog's not making it easier here right now on my lap. But yeah, we can get a screenshot here anyway. But there we go. This crazy baseball robot. If you can see that. But yep, here's a episode of the show with Family Stadium and Kamen Rider crossover. I think maybe more than one episode, but
So was he
Space
like one of
Wars?
the
Was that
monsters
it?
of the week?
I don't know that much about Kamen Rider to be honest. I don't know what the structure is of it really, but yeah, I think that's I think that's the general idea. I don't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy. I have no idea, but yeah.
Was Base Wars, was that a crossover as well?
That was, I don't think it was with any particular property, but yeah, it was like a robot. Weirdly, there were a lot of like robo sci-fi apocalyptic
Right.
baseball games
Yes.
around it. Yeah, because there's Super Baseball 2020
Yeah.
is kind of similar.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, Base Wars with yeah, various robots and cyborgs playing against each
The
other.
the Sega Champion Baseball, I definitely pumped a lot of quarters into that one back in the early to mid 80s. And what I recall with that is that it had the first three initials of certain players, but I don't think they had any licensing. But you could tell by the batting averages or the ERAs, you could kind of figure out who the players were. And I think it wasn't every team, it was maybe like 16 teams that you could pick from or something. So
I still have not even played the arcade version, so yeah, you're ahead of me on that one.
yeah, you got to check that one out. But I think that one, if the computer team went ahead, the game was over. Or maybe you had to pump more quarters in
I
to
guess
keep
that makes
playing,
sense
or
for an arcade game.
one of
Yeah.
those. Yeah.
It's always
Yeah.
tricky with baseball arcade games where it's like, yeah, how are you going to structure that for you to have to put in more quarters in? Because 9 innings
Yeah.
is going to be too long, but it's going to be annoying to keep
Yes.
asking people. Yeah.
Or you just pump in enough quarters to play 9 innings, I guess.
Yeah.
One way.
Yeah.
Was going to ask you about the Sega. They had the Sega Master System and the Genesis. What were the crossovers from that side?
Yeah. So we had Reggie Jackson Baseball for the Master System was released over there under the title American Baseball, and in Europe and I think Brazil, as American Baseball. But yeah, they had other games over there that didn't end up coming here. I'm not sure if I could. So I've got a big spreadsheet. I could probably have an answer here, but for Master System, yeah, they've got all made by the same company, Whiteboard, and then published by Sega. We have Great Baseball and Nekyu Koshin, which is a high school baseball game. I didn't talk about any high school baseball games here really, but that's a whole other category over there that they have, and we don't really have. Some of those came over here as like Little League games, but mostly they kind of keep the high school games themselves. But
And those have like actual player names, or they're just like the teams, uniforms, that type of thing.
yeah, it'd be like a surprisingly crazy in-depth database of team names and like school names, but not wouldn't be real player names for those. But yeah, like yeah, schools and uniforms and songs to some extent, not not every school song, but some of those. But yeah, a couple of those got released in Europe only for some reason. There's League Series Baseball 2 and Home Run that are both versions of Koshin games for the PS2 that came out in the UK and and did not come to here for some reason. They're not very good, but yes, we've got just tiny glimpses of those.
Well, I did want to mention that Nate contributed to the book that John Racanelli and I wrote, which is Hardball Retro's Compendium of Baseball Video Games and Electronic Handhelds. Nate contributed the section on Japanese baseball video games, a number of screenshots, and some other comments. So appreciate all of your contributions to that. I think we had kind of spoken about expanding that chapter, but it would have delayed the publication. So maybe volume 2.
Yeah, no problem.
And
Right,
Derek
absolutely.
is being very modest because it's an award-winning book. It won the one of the SABR awards this past year, shared it with 2 other books. So he's being extremely modest. But it's great that we saw some of this come out of our committee because that's where John and Derek met up, was up at SABR 51 in Chicago. So
Yeah, John had not to hijack the thread here, Nate. John had quite the collection of electronic handhelds dating back to the Mattel game. So we had a table at the exhibitors room in Chicago, and every other person that was walking up was like, "Hey, I had either the Mattel or the Coleco handheld." And, I had a couple laptops running either the APA Baseball for Windows or Old Time Baseball with the commentary going. So
Nice.
that was a lot of fun.
Got my copy of the book this week. I've been flipping through slowly, but
And you had mentioned there's a counterpart on the Japanese side, right?
They totally have. I don't know all that much about the handhelds, but those yeah, I think some of those are ones that came out in both places, but
Yep.
yeah, haven't dug too
Haven't
much
gone
into
down
those
that
yet.
rabbit hole yet.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually.
How many carry-ons are you bringing with you?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's definitely a bring an extra empty suitcase and
Right.
smuggle all of it back in.
Yeah, this is great. Yeah, it's definitely a topic that's probably that we barely scratched the surface on, especially in North America. It's like, well, if it didn't come out here, it doesn't exist. Well, actually, there's a lot of stuff that's overseas, like that. What you found, and I just find it interesting that there was a lot of crossover in the 80s and maybe early 90s, and then then it stopped. So
Yeah.
all right.
Thanks to Robert Whiting as always for the a little more detail this time on on
Yes.
Warren Cromartie, but
Right.
his biography there. But
yeah, we still have the occasional player going from America over there to kind of resurrect their careers, right? So
I didn't even
Miles
realize.
Michaelis and some of those
I didn't
guys, right?
realize Cromartie went over there. I had
yeah,
no
big
idea.
big giant star over there for
Yeah.
a
Who
good
was it?
while.
Randy Bass hit like 52 homers, and they were
Yeah, it's at the same time. Yeah, they're definitely
right.
the two
They didn't want
different.
to pitch to him because he was going to break the record,
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah. And then Bob Horner only really managed to last like a year, but he was briefly was those three
Yep.
as the.
Yeah. I think Davey Johnson was there for a little bit too.
Oh yeah.
I'd be wrong, but yeah, it does happen. All right. Yeah, Phil, Andy, any other questions?
No questions from me. Just Nate, as the older I get, the more I appreciate when somebody devotes so much passion and time to, a niche topic. And, if it wasn't for you doing it, some of this information might not be saved.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I think it's just awesome that you devoted so much time to really quantifying and sort of creating an encyclopedia of this information. I think it's awesome. So kudos to you for doing that.
Yeah. Long way to go on that, but yeah, it's yep. And there are people who do like, video game preservation stuff. I follow a lot of those people. They just tend not to be sports nerds at the same time as being video game nerds. So yeah, you need kind of a certain kind of crossover person for that. But,
Yeah.
I found a lot of the games that are preserved, the game disc or the ROM from the actual game is preserved, but not the data discs, not the utility discs. So a lot of that stuff is most likely out in a recycled bin or in a landfill somewhere, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Along with the documentation and the boxes, a lot of people don't save things, or unopened box of something would probably fetch a lot of money from some of those earlier games.
Yeah, that'll have to be a later stage of this is dumping these floppy disks from stuff that I bring in. Something I'll have to do at some point I haven't really tackled yet, but just been more scanning stuff so far. But yeah.
Yeah, especially if you have stuff on the older Japanese computers, right? Whether they have like a Sharp and some of the other older PCs.
Yeah, they're not really in view, but yeah, that is a bookcase over there that's just old Japanese PC of various computer baseball games. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, cool stuff, definitely. Unless anybody else has any questions, then I guess we can wrap up here.
The new guy's always going to drag it out. I just had one quick one. I know the Captain Tsubasa character has gotten well, it's at least available over here in the States for soccer. And I know there's a ton of anime baseball properties. So I was curious, has there been any thought of maybe bringing some of those Japanese anime baseball video games, or are there Japanese anime baseball video games that they could bring over to the States? And is there anyone who's interested in that besides me?
Yeah, I've played some of those Captain Tsubasa games before. I played soccer in high school and stuff, and soccer's kind of my second sport. The those exist over there, not so much recently. There were several on the 3DS for things like I'm trying to think if I can peer over at my 3DS shelf there and remind myself. But yeah, like there's so many different high school baseball manga and anime. I feel like there's very few that are translated, which has been kind of a little frustrating for me. Um yeah, like there's the Famicom had like Mizushima Shinji no Daikoshin, which was like a combination of this the guy who made all of those various like Dokuben is the most famous of those high school baseball manga, putting all his characters together in one game. There's another one similar to that for GameCube that was like real life players versus his anime characters. Um, that would be what was that called? That was like Gekito Proyaku Mizushima Shinji All Stars versus Pro Baseball. Yeah, they love long titles over there. Um, yeah, I feel like there's not in terms of bringing it over here. I just feel like there's not enough that are translated and popular so much over here. You made it better than me, um, but uh, but that would be a cool thing, um, for sure.
I think we were discussing at one point the Out of the Park. I think they had the Japanese license, and now they had to they had to strip it out of the game at some point.
Yeah, I kind of rumors around what that is, but people tend to think that it was a legal threat to them from Konami, who are the people who make the big NPB license games. That I don't know exactly what the nature is of their NPB license, but that's the whispers are definitely that it was them threatening to sue after Out of the Park got sold to come to us, and it became sort of got on their radar a little more in the region. But
Right.
yeah. There are mods available now that kind of bring in a fictional Japanese league, but otherwise, yeah, you got to go back to Out of the Park 22 if you want to play the real thing.
Right. Right. All right. Anybody else? Any other questions, comments? If not, I'm just going to mention a couple upcoming meetings. We've got May 8th with Steve Etzel. Steve has a YouTube channel, Steve Etzel's Fun and Games. Steve deconstructs the older tabletop baseball simulations, and he creates spreadsheets to create player cards for those games that are no longer on the market. So that is May 8th, 8 p.m. Eastern. June 12th, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, we have Kenneth and Roswell Miller Associates. They designed the APBA Major League Players Baseball for the Apple II and the IBM PC, and also the app of baseball for Windows Broadcast Blast series with Ernie Harwell on the commentary. So they'll be here June 12th, 7 p.m. Eastern. And the last one we have lined up currently is July 8th, 8 p.m. Eastern with Dean Patino. He designed Baseball Classics Legends on the Diamond card and dice game. And he's also the author of several books chronicling MLB history from 1901 to the present. So we're looking forward to those meetings.
Also,
Mark, do you have anything else?
Yeah, we will not be having a presence at SABR 53 in Texas. Derek's got some previous commitments, and I don't want to go too deep into this, but apparently somebody in your government in the United States doesn't like Canadians as much anymore. So we're gonna pause that, but we'll probably have a meeting after SABR 53. Without a guest, just to see where people are at, what they want more of, whether there's people who want to do more in the committee, and do all that. But we'll do that after SABR 53 and everybody's fresh, and people could share stories with us because we're not able to attend this year.
But if
But
you're in the Dallas area, yeah, check it out. Right.
yeah, if you're going to be there, it's I'm kind of disappointed I'm not going to be able to go, but it's advised that we got an advisement actually from the institution I work with this week not to be going to the States. So anyway, we'll see what happens in the next little while. Hopefully it gets
Is what it
better.
is.
Those of you that are in the east, like Derek, watch out for those forest fires. I didn't realize they were as bad. Derek was threatened. We weren't sure. We thought we might have to cancel tonight, but thankfully things are under control. And being where I am, I know all about forest fires, so we get hit with them every summer. Anybody have anything else they want to share or talk about?
I just wanted to say this is a really cool thing. I've been on the fence about joining SABR for a while. Not like there's anything wrong with it. I just been like, oh yeah, that's something I should do. And when I saw this group, I was like, oh yeah, this is absolutely my favorite parts of baseball. My introduction to baseball was my mom whooping me at RBI. Like that was my first experience at baseball, was my mom just routinely beating me at Nintendo baseball games. And then I actually found her old collection of baseball books. So when I saw that this was like a committee that met regularly, that was the thing that pushed me over. So anyways, just really excited about all the stuff you guys are doing, and super enjoyed this presentation.
Phil, we have all of our old, and this is part of the reason we're redoing this tonight, because it didn't record when we did it originally about 2 weeks ago. We have all of our meetings over the last couple of years now available on YouTube. So if there's a manufacturer or something you're looking for, go back and take a look. And some of them we may we try not to repeat our guests, but we may, because like yourself, you're new to it, and we're always got new people, and we've had some that sure didn't get to get all their stories in, and I want to have them back, let alone everybody else. So but yeah, they're all available, and
Yeah,
Derek and
it's
I
up on
revised
up on our website.
yeah.
Yeah, saberbaseballgaming.com. Yep. If you
Yeah,
go to past events.
We revived this committee, and I'm glad we did, and I'm glad the path we've gone with it. I know some people thought we should just pick a game, and there was no way we were doing that.
No, I think it's cool that you guys cover video games and tabletop. I'm very much looking forward to the guest in a couple of weeks that talks about the out of print tabletop, because I like that stuff as well.
Does your mom still whip you at games?
Oh, dude, if she was with me, she would. So that's the thing. Like, so my son's 8 years old right now, and my wife always tells me, she's like, hey, maybe we should let Frankie win. I'm like, nah, like my mom would never let that slide. She's my mom, it's really funny. My dad didn't like sports and my dad didn't like gaming, but my mom liked both. My mom is a huge sports fan. She once told me she missed a triple play at a Giants game because she was digging in her purse for her cigarettes, and she like would never forgive herself for missing a triple play. But she also really liked gaming, so she had a subscription to Strategy and Tactics. So those two, my mom being into those two things, definitely influenced me as a kid. And I think that explains why I like all the stuff I like now, like tabletop sports games and Squad Leader and all that good stuff.
That's so weird. I wrote some computer game reviews for Strategy and Tactics also. It's just a weird, it happens to correlate, but yeah.
When my two kids were much younger, I'd whip them Mario Kart, and I would be extremely obnoxious about it. Now I can't even come close to either of them. And my youngest, who is 24, is absolutely obnoxious about it, to the point where I don't even want to play. She's worse than I ever was. So
That's awesome. So me and Frankie play a lot of the retro mode on MLB The Show on Switch, and he legitimately beat me the other day. And so for about 2 or 3 days afterwards, he's been walking around just saying, "Hey, remember when I walked you off? Remember when I walked you off, Dad?" So it's been really fun. He's not a huge baseball fan, but he likes baseball video games, so it's kind of cool that we both have that in common.
awesome. Okay, guys. Anything else?
Just
Nate,
while I was going to mention while Andy's here, Andy runs baseballsimauctions.com, and we've had a lot of fun with that over the last couple of years. Basically, we just or Andy, I don't know if you want to do a quick couple-minute spiel on it, but
Yeah, I mean, for me, the reason I started it is really two reasons. One, I always liked the fantasy baseball auctions. And obviously fantasy baseball you could do with drafts or auctions, but auctions to me were always a lot more challenging, a lot more fun. And for years I had this idea in my head of how could I apply the auctions to historical baseball seasons. And then around the time of COVID, which obviously gave us a lot of bad stuff happening, but also gave us a lot more time at home to sort of marinate ideas and develop ideas. I stumbled across APBA, the computer game, and I thought, you know what? I think I could make this idea happen with APBA. And then so eventually I created a website, and in a nutshell, what we do is we take 5 or 6 historical baseball teams and we make all the players free agents. Then we actually hold an auction via Zoom where we share a spreadsheet and we actually create 5 or 6 new teams from that player pool. And then once I input all those teams into the APBA program, a few days later, we do another Zoom meeting where we actually run a Sim Auction World Series in which each season rather, counts as a game. So we simulate an entire season with the newly created teams to determine who actually created the best teams. And for me, it's always been much more fun when I play these games. I'm more of the create the team and see whether the team you created was the best team. So I don't necessarily like to play out the game or be the manager. So my thought has always been, I want to be the team constructor, the GM, and then quickly find out if I created the best team or not, and then down the line do another auction. So I'm not into the day-to-day management, and even though I am in an APBA league, I don't enjoy that as much as the sim auction where I create the team, we simulate the seasons, and we find out who created the best team. But it's challenging, as Derek can attest, and Mark as well. And it's tricky to really price the players. In other words, price the stats correctly, but also manage the money during the auction. Those are really the two challenging pieces to it. But a lot of fun when you can get it just right. It's a lot of fun. And actually, Derek, we have one coming up this Sunday with an idea that you came up with, which is kind of interesting. It's sort of a melding of fantasy baseball and sim auctions, because we're doing a decades auction where you're essentially bidding on all the years from the 1970s for a player, but you won't know what year you get until the end of the auction, where we actually randomize the years. So that's going to be a little bit of a twist to it. So we're not bidding on a season, we're bidding on a group of seasons, and then finding out at the end what season you actually get in a randomized manner. So that'll be kind of interesting.
Well, the third challenging thing with yours, with what you're doing, Andy, is beating you. I don't care what anybody.
Well, I've done enough of them, so I better be, decent at it.
Yeah, but I want to see you
It
lose
is-
once.
Well, I've lost a couple, but it is fun. I do enjoy it.
it's definitely a challenge. So it's a lot of fun. So baseball
So
sim
Phil,
auctions, right?
if you ever want to try one out, Phil or Nate, just let me know.
I better get brave. Sounds like this is going to be a tough skiing.
It's fun
That
though.
totally matches how I like to. Yeah, in OTP, I'm like not managing every game or anything. Similarly, I like the GM angle more than the
Yeah.
managing individual decisions kind of thing.
That's where I'm at, Nate. I like the GM. I do play the show, but I don't really play anybody online because I'm really bad.
I don't really play anybody online either.
You get some of these guys online, and it's like it's 9-0 before like one time through the order. I'm
totally
just
is like
not
that. Yep.
So, but I like to play just for myself. Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much. We will see you at one of the next meetings. Hopefully your teams are doing well, or doing better than my team is right now. They were doing good until the last 6 games or so. I see the Cubs are doing well as long as they score 12 runs in a game. And I see the Angels are back where they belong.
Yeah, yeah, we had our little, I kind of take it when I can get it. We haven't had a good season in about, I don't know, 12 years, maybe, something like that.
But
So,
I found out this week, and Derek knew the answer. The only franchise to not lose 100 games in a season is the Angels.
I didn't know that. Interesting.
Every other franchise at some time has lost 100 games or more.
we lost 99 last year, and that's why I knew the answer to that.
So, well, good night, everybody, and have fun.
Thanks again, Nate, for coming back on with us.
Thanks.
Really appreciate it. Yep.
Thanks,
Great
Nate.
presentation. And
I hope it
yep.
recorded because I didn't touch it.
Yep. And Phil, welcome aboard.
Yes.
Thanks.
Welcome, Phil.
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
All right.